On the edge of a wind-swept plateau, where the mountains breathed clouds and the trees bent in reverence to the sky, there lived a boy named Cale. He was born on a stormy night, in a small stone cottage held together by moss and faith. His first cry was drowned by thunder. His first breath carried the scent of lightning. From the beginning, Cale was different. He never spoke, but everyone said he listened better than anyone. He would sit for hours on the cliffs, his eyes half closed, his fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. The villagers whispered that he was simple, strange, lost in dreams. But the truth was far more remarkable. Cale could read the wind. Not just its direction or strength, like a sailor or a hunter. He could read its language. He understood that every gust carried a story, every breeze a memory. The morning winds from the south carried songs from distant cities. The cold ones from the north whispered warnings. The high, soft currents at dusk brought forgotten laughter, and the scent of old gardens. His mother, a weaver, loved him deeply but feared for his loneliness. She often found him at dawn barefoot on the roof, arms open wide. "What do you hear, my son?" she'd ask. And though Cale never answered with words, his smile said, "Everything." One day, a wind came unlike any before. It arrived in silence, heavy, still. Cale woke before dawn, heart pounding. The air around him felt paused, like the world was holding its breath. He ran to the cliffs and waited. Then it came. A single gust, strong, hot, swirling with scents he didn't recognize. But more than that, it carried a message. Not just a whisper, but a call. A name. His. And one word, carved into the wind like stone. Come. Cale packed a small satchel, dried fruit, a folded map his mother had kept from her youth, and a small piece of sky-blue cloth she once tied in his hair when he was small. He left without a note. He knew his mother would understand. She always did. He followed the wind. It didn't blow straight. It danced. It twisted. It pulled him through forests with glowing moss and rivers that sang in bird voices. It led him to strangers with old stories and warm fires. And always it whispered. He learned to feel its moods, to sense when it was lying, to know when it missed something. The wind became his teacher, and he its student. After weeks, or maybe months, Cale came to the hollow pass, a valley so deep the sun forgot it. The wind stopped there. No breeze, no motion, just silence. But Cale felt something. He pressed his ear to the earth and heard it. The wind wasn't gone. It was trapped, imprisoned beneath stone. He spent days searching. Then in the base of a twisted cedar he found a door. Old, wooden, bound with roots. He entered. Inside was not a cave, not a room, but a library of wind. Tunnels carved by centuries of gales, shelves made of hollow reeds, scrolls made from shed feathers, every gust that had ever blown bottled and kept. Cale walked listening. Each whisper told a story, of storms turned to peace, of songs stolen mid-sentence, of secrets carried across oceans. He reached the heart of the library. There, bound in a cage of silence, was the old wind. It had no shape, but Cale saw it, like seeing thunder. It spoke, not with sound but with memory. I am the first breath, the one who called. I gave language to the birds and rhythm to the sea. But I was bound by fear. Humans stopped listening. They wanted control. They trapped me. Cale placed his hand on the cage. It was warm. You hear me still, said the old wind. Cale nodded. Will you free me? Cale hesitated. What would happen if the wind were unbound? Then he remembered the stillness, the quiet that was not peace, the sadness of forgotten voices. He nodded again. The cage shattered. A roar filled the hollow, but it did not hurt. It healed. Cale stood in the center of a storm of sound, and in it, he heard every story ever carried by the wind. And then silence. But not the same silence. A restful silence. The kind that follows understanding. When Cale returned home, the wind followed. The villagers watched in awe as weather patterns shifted. The crops grew taller. The air felt cleaner. People laughed more. Cale never spoke. He didn't need to. The wind told his story. And in distant lands, children stood on rooftops, eyes closed, arms wide, listening. Some say they could hear him. Some say they became like him. Able to read the wind. Able to remember what the world had forgotten. And just like that, stories traveled again, not in books but in breezes. In the hush before a storm. In the rustle of leaves. In the breath between words. Because the wind had been waiting. For a boy who knew how to listen. And a world ready to hear.